So here we are. We came in. I came in today to ask the question about pain and suffering. I'm a physical therapist.
That's why we're in business.
I have seen many people over the years who are in pain and suffer, and in pain and don't suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And the first noble truth is suffering is universal.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I find peace with all that suffering?
Well, first you have to find peace in yourself about the suffering that you have. And then you understand why you're suffering, and then you understand why others are suffering. Like, as you know, two different people can have the same situation and live with it very differently. Look at Ram Dass. He goes through more in a day than I go through in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's present, he's here, he's very alive, and he accepts it as his karmic unfolding, and he treats it, respects it as his teacher. And he was talking about how the pain keeps dragging his mind away from Maharaji. And so then he brings it back, and then it drags away, This is a practice. It doesn't have to be a formal, like this, to be a meditation practice, but all he does is sit in a chair and look out at the ocean and work with people and talk with people, but he's constantly involved with how, where is my attention? Where do I want to be? So it's...
Yeah, but we saw Ram Dass a while ago, and he was in pain, and I'm not peaceful with his pain. I think as a professional, there was something in me that was not at peace with Ram Dass, whether he was at peace with his pain.
Yeah.
And so my question kind of comes back to, how can I be at peace with Ram Dass's pain if suffering is universal?
Well, you're projecting onto him something that you feel yourself. You can't know what he's feeling inside. No one can know what another person's actually experiencing. But you're projecting, if that was me, I would be in terrible pain. But you're not. He's fine with it.
Right.
He's fine with it. So, once again, I think it really comes down to having your practice really be working and being really alive, because we're always projecting, and you're working with people who are in physical pain. And once you understand where the pain comes from, then you're not getting identified with the drama of it. Will help them release their identification. But until you do,
Exactly.
You can't help anybody.
Right, right.
And that's good work, because you see it constantly, and you can't. Since you're dealing with those people all the time, you're always facing it, so it's wonderful.
Well, and I am usually at peace with it. I think the kinds of patients I see now are maybe suffering light. I was in previous jobs.
I was in the jungle with this Baba last year. Beautiful young Baba. He's about 40 years old. Lives in the jungle. He's really amazing. And I said to him, Baba, people come to me all the time, and what can I tell them? How can I help them with their suffering when I have suffering?
Right.
That's the embodiment of the question.
And he said to me, you don't have suffering. All your suffering's in your mind. And first I thought it was like just a cheap throwaway. But then it really hit me later. Oh, he's right. Really, I don't have a lot of suffering. I have a house. I know where I'm going to sleep. I'm not worried about where my next meal is coming from. I'm pretty sure when I get in my car, it's going to work. I got love around me all the time, people, What suffering do I have? Where is that suffering? It's in my mind. So it's in my thoughts. It comes from the way I think and the way I identify with my thoughts and the way they catch me. So this is where your suffering is. That's where the suffering is. So once the freer you get of your identification with your suffering, then when you interact with somebody, you're available for them to pass that, to let go of that through you, in a way, through your interaction. But it's first your situation that you have to deal with, over and over and over. You just can't know what, what another person's feeling. Even when something goes bad with my life, like if I hurt myself or I get sick, the suffering is from believing what the thoughts tell me. My story about the sensations that I feel. If you've ever done any Buddhist meditation, there's sensation. There's pleasant sensation. Now there's unpleasant sensation. It's not really pain and suffering. First, you're recognizing things as a sensory input that you become aware of. Then there's a story that around it all of a sudden, What was that? I remember Joseph Goldstein was telling a story once. Somebody came to me and he said, I've got this headache and it comes all the time, and every time I try to meditate I get this headache, and it goes on and on. Joseph said, you have a headache. Yeah. And then, it keeps going and it always comes back. I can't get it. You have a headache. Yeah, right. And so it's in Buddhism, it's called the proliferation of thoughts. There's a button is pushed and whoosh, They really have no reality. The only reality that our thoughts have is what we give to them, because we're so unconscious and so asleep and so used to doing that. So seeing that is very useful. And that's a good way of, and then you see that your patients are doing that or not doing that. And it's not them, it's how they identify with the stuff, And it's through practice. Any kind of practice. It doesn't have to be Buddhist practice, but any kind of practice that we really start to develop the ability, a little space in there, a little mushiness where you can not get so caught all the time, Any kind of practice that we practice letting go of what we think. I mean, some thoughts seem to be reasonable, but, who knows, right?
Right.
Right. Both of us being medical providers, we're put on that identification almost immediately per patient.
Yeah.
Things come at us. We feel like, okay, what can we do to help? What do we do to fix that?
Yeah.
And it's pretty round robin for us, one after the other.
Yeah.
And to maintain a sense of, it's not separation we want, but we don't want super identification with their pain. We want to help.
But that won't come from holding back.
Right.
It only comes from engaging fully.
Fully.
And understanding, like Krishna says in the Gita, you do what you do, but the results of your actions, that's up to you. So that means you're free to engage fully, because you're not responsible.
Right. We don't own it.
You didn't cause it, nor can you relieve it. You can do whatever you can do in that moment, and as fully as you do it, that'll also bring the person into the moment with you.
Right.
But if you're holding back and have fear and are clinging to your not wanting to get or this or that, they feel that too.
Right.
So the more you can be there completely, then a person can release that yourself, because you're releasing it. You're not getting identified with the stuff, even your own. Once again, it's your stuff you bring into the moment.
Exactly. Right. And so long ago, Ram Dass said, you do what you can to relieve suffering.
Yeah.
And as providers, I trust that. I trust that. That's where we come from. I think both of us practice from there.
That's a great thing.
Do
It's a
what you
great thing to
can.
want to do that. But once again,
Right.
the suffering that someone is experiencing is a result of their own karmas. If you can give them some comfort, that's a wonderful thing. But you can't cure anybody of anything. Even medicine doesn't cure. Karma cures. They were in the right place, the right button got pushed, the thing went away.
Right.
That's also karma. So those people sick people in pain have a certain situation. They're burning off their karma. So all you can do is comfort people, and be with them as fully. And of course, if you have certain skills, you can do a lot to relieve the actual sensations that they feel. But you can't. You
Right,
know.
ultimately fix that.
But you can make it easier for them to release it also. Once again, the more here we are, the easier. Same thing when I sing. It's the same thing when I sing. When I sit down to sing, I only do one thing. I sing, and when I notice I'm not paying attention, I come back.
Right.
That's basically what it is. I'm not thinking about, am I singing good? I'm not thinking about, do the people like it? I hope this will help people. You know, maybe all that's there somewhere, but that's not the reason I'm doing what I do. I'm doing what I do for the sake of my own heart.
Right.
You know, and when you're serving people, if you see it as service, then the first thing you're serving is your own heart.
Right.
And you share that service with whoever you're with as best you can.
Right.
And, you know, it's practice. Everything in life is
Everything's
practice.
practice.
You know, if you can take it that way.
Yeah.
Everything is the guru teaching. The
It
Buddha
is. That's
teachings.
the most liberating thing.
Yeah.
Everything is practice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's an intent to help everybody, and it's easy to identify with their suffering, and that I think you've helped me become more at peace with their suffering, for them not to identify, for me not to identify with their suffering, but to do the best I can.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And the
Yeah.
way not identifying with manifests, being really there, not having any ideas about it, you know, thinking
Right,
any kind of
right.
aspirate, other than to comfort and help as best you can. Whether it takes hold or whether it changes their situation or not, that's not really up to us. What's up to us is to do the best we can. And, you know, if we're doing the best we can over here, we'll do the best we can over here. So your offices or your place of practice and your home and driving in the car on the way is a place, everything is, you know, we always have an opportunity to kind of remember. And the remembering is also our karmic fruit of having previously remembered. You know?
Yeah.
That's the seeds we ourselves have planted.
Right. I
Yeah.
like that. I like
Right.
that.
Very
It's
good.
good. It's very good. Yeah.
No, but you know, it's really,
It's an interesting one being a
Yeah.
practitioner, because that's what they call us. We're
Yeah.
practitioners,
Yeah.
and that's our practice.
the Gita is really, there's a great book called The Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna Prem. And I think they've republished it now, at least in India. It's a really unique book. And he was in the 30s and 40s, he was an Englishman, went to India at like the age of 20, and he stayed his whole life. And it's an amazing story. And he lived up in the Himalayas near where we stayed with Maharaji. And it's an extraordinary book. It takes the Gita and it shows that it's a progressive path from the first chapter to the last chapter. They're not all individual little things. They can't be chopped up, cut and
Right.
pasted around. You have to start here. And the first yoga, the first chapter is called the Yoga of the Desolation of Arjuna.
Right.
Desolation, true desolation is the beginning of the path. That's when you've given up.
Right.
You cannot
We've
take
let
a
go.
step anymore. You know?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
over.
Yeah.
That's when you can hear the word of God.
Right.
And then Krishna takes him through step by step until finally at the end he says, do what you do. And dedicate the fruit of your actions to me. You know? And that's a tough one. Because we don't have that. Coming from the West, it's really hard for us to believe there's any me up there or in there, you know. Right? But I mean, I've lived in India my whole life, and do I really think that those temples, you know, do I really think those murtis are really God, you know, or manifested? I don't know, they look like stone to me, but other people see them differently. You know, the Indians have a different kind of psychological makeup and shape that we do. But it's through our work on ourselves and our practice that the way we see the world changes before our very eyes. It changes. it's like we're wearing self-correcting glasses. That little by little, they just self-correct.
Thank
And
goodness.
finally,
Yeah.
by the end, we're seeing things clearly. And it's very different when we're not busy projecting.
Right.
So when that Baba said it's all in my mind, I understood what he... The other thing he told me was, he said, I said, but Baba, what did I tell him? He says, just tell him to repeat Ram's name. And I said, Baba, these are Westerners. They don't understand fuck all about Ram's name. And he just laughed. He said, but they feel it when you sing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I went, right,
Right.
right. So,
Right. We can attest to that.
well, I can attest to it too. That's
Yeah.
why I sing, so I could hear that.
That's why we listen.
We're all in the same boat. You
We
know,
are.
This guy is not the, it's Maharaji singing inside of me, and that's what we all feel. So, cool.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming all this way. I appreciate it, really.
No, we enjoyed it.
Good,
Thank you.
good. Take care. Nice to see
Thank
you.
you. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Yeah.
Be well. Take the cup. It's yours.
We will.